Hi guys, welcome back to another video, or your first video here, I don't know. Welcome if you're new here, welcome either way. This video might look a bit different. My ring light has pooped out on me, so I'm going to have to film as many of these videos as I can before the sun goes down. So we are going to start off with my goals video, going through the goals I made for the year of 2022, seeing whether or not I then want to adapt them and make a new set of goals for 2023 in terms of my reading. And a little bit about my channel, but mostly reading. So, goal one that I set for 2022 was to read 100 books. And yes, I absolutely completed this. This has been the most number of books I've read, I think, at least since I've been tracking that on Goodreads. I joined Goodreads in 2018, and this year I read over 200 books, which is amazing for me. Now, this is the time when I say it doesn't matter how many books you read per year. Numbers mean absolutely nothing. For me personally, I just like to set a goal, but I'm never stressing about reading, stressing about the number of books I'm reading. Last year, I was a bit concerned that I was picking out shorter books in order to meet my Goodreads goal because I wasn't making it. But I found... Reg? No. But this year, I knew that I was going to make my Goodreads goal, and I still picked shorter fiction or shorter books and plays and things. So I think it's just that I like short fiction, so I don't think I'm forcing myself to read books of a certain length. But yes, I did meet this goal, and for 2023, I'm going to set the same Goodreads goal. The second goal was to prioritise books that I already owned. So this one I somewhat did. I actually have, let me move over here. I actually have a graph that I did of where books came from in terms of what I read. The three categories, I can't remember exactly what order they came in, was books that I already owned and read, and books that I didn't own and now plan to pick up a copy, and books that I didn't own and I don't plan to pick up a copy. So you'll see that the books I already owned do make up like a decent portion of this, but it is kind of like the middle section. And that does include books that I owned, read, and then decided to remove from my shelves, get rid of. And it includes books that I didn't own and then bought a copy of subsequently within the year. I didn't want to go through all my haul and unhaul videos to sort all that out and split it up. So I think I gave this one a decent effort, but also the goal was never to have that be the majority of my reading. So I think that for this coming year, I'm going to change this goal slightly and make it more specific and say that at least a third of my reading I want to be from my already established shelves so that I can more accurately track that next year. So the next goal I had was to cut down my physical TBR. The first year I was on BookTube, I made it the goal where I wanted to go from 225 physical unread novels to 150, which I think I almost met or was very, very close to. I changed it for the next year to be not exceeding the shelf space. So unfortunately, I forgot that I made this my goal, or at least I forgot that I changed it from a number to a space question, and I wanted it so that it wouldn't exceed the shelf space I had allotted to my unread novels. Because of how my shelves, like how the categories in my shelves have not changed. So I split my books on my shelves by novels and comics, then by, and a few other things, then by read and unread, and then by author. So over time, as I've read books, bought books, got rid of books, the number of books in each of those categories has shifted. So even though I'm not exceeding the shelf space I currently own, the shelf spaces I had allotted to those categories didn't really fit anymore, so I have changed it around. It's not quite perfect, and now I'm at the point where technically the number of unread books I own exceeds the shelf space I've now allotted to it, but it wouldn't in the shelf space I had originally put. I don't know if I'm making much sense, but basically, technically, yes and no, because I knocked down my physical to be read list and knocked it down to the point where I could move it because of the fact that I had loads more space on the shelf I'd allotted it to. So I'm going to count up the books I still have physically on my shelf, and I'll put the number up here. And I'll say this was a win if I kept it below, let's say 150, because that was my original goal. The next goal, and the one that I'm most excited about when I found out the stats for, was to finish 5 series. Again, I had this as the same goal the previous year, and I didn't even knock it off. I completed like 3 series, 2 of which I started and finished in that year, so they weren't even knocking off backlist series. This is because I have so many unread series on my shelves. It is ridiculous the amount of books that I, say, read the first book in the series of. I love it. I start collecting the rest of them, and then by the time I go to read the next one, I've completely forgotten everything. Or I'm like, oh, I want to get into that series one day, pick up multiple books from it and never get around to it. So I have a couple of graphics I've made to go through this particular stat, but I'm so happy with the number of books that I managed to, or the number of series I managed to finish. There we go, that'll leave enough room. I'm going to be looking down here because that's where I've got it up on the shelf. So, first of all, I have 9 series that I both started and finished in the year 2022. So we have the Cinder series, the Lord of the Rings, Belinda Blinked, which I think I had almost 2 full read-throughs of this year, Break Your Glass Slippers, and To Make Monsters Out of Girls, which are 2 poetry book collections. I reread the Red Air series. I finished all the books out in the Queer Principles of Kit Webb. I know that that series itself has like another title, but I can't remember it. I finished the Double Up series and the Lord of Eternal Night series. Some of these series I can see having more books released in the future, but as it stands right now, I have finished every book out in those 9 series. So even just with that, I have completely smashed my goal. The next category I have is series that I didn't start in 2022, but I finished the last few books in the series. So we have the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I finished the last book in the original trilogy. I have no interest in continuing on with the spin-off trilogy, so this is, for me, counting it as finished. I finished out the Daughter of Smoke and Bone books, which I absolutely loved, so I read the second 2 and the accompanying novella for that series, and I finished out The Princess Saves Herself in This One poetry collection. So, yet again, more series that I am getting off my shelves, and I'm so happy with that. The next category I have is series that I started and or continued in during the year, and I just don't intend to finish them. So in the way that I've categorised this, I see these as series that I have knocked off my to-be-read shelf. So we have Noughts and Crosses. I really enjoyed this, but don't intend to finish it. Well, that's going to be the case for most of these. We have A Curse So Dark and Lonely. Again, really enjoyed, but I don't want to finish. Frostblood, which I thought was okay, and so therefore I don't want to finish out the series. Pirates Cove, which I really enjoyed, and I read the sequel, which I didn't enjoy as much, which is why I don't see myself finishing out the series. The Scarlet Pimpernel, which is a classic, and I really enjoyed it, but I don't want to continue. I read one of the book in the Desperate Measures series, or the villain... anyway, the Katie Roberts series. I thought that the book I was reading was a standalone by her. It wasn't, it was part of this series. I don't want to read the rest. And we have The Hazelwood, which has... I don't know whether or not it ever intended to be a series, but I've seen more books come out, and I'm happy with reading just the one. So again, that's 7 more series that I have knocked off my shelves. And I think this is the final category of series that I have read or removed from my to-be-read list, and this is 8 series where I started the first book and I DNF'd it, and therefore I'm counting this as a series I technically started and I'm not going to continue with them. They weren't for me. So we have the Count Your Lucky Stars book. That was a romance that didn't really work for me. The Swallows and Amazons series. I tried reading boyfriend material and it just felt like a bad knockoff of Red, White and Royal Blue. The Edge Chronicles I started reading, didn't really wasn't really for me. I think it could have been for me if I was younger. The Agatha Christie Sophie Hannah series, where Sophie Hannah has taken over the Poirot character, I'm not going to continue in that. The Caraval series, Truly Devious, and the Red Pyramid, which is the Kane Chronicles series. I'm also thinking now about one that I also DNF'd another romance this year, or last year technically now, but I know that it has a sequel as well. So actually there's 9 series on this list. An Unexpected Kind of Love. I'll put the cover up here, but that's another one. Also, these categories might not be totally accurate, not in the number I have, but I might be underestimating, just because there might be books on my shelves that I read this year where I am not aware that they were a series or had sequels, etc. So I am really happy with the number of series. And then talking about the ones that I have yet to finish, I have this split into 2 categories. So first of all, these are series that I started and or continued in during the year 2022, and I have yet to finish, and I fully intend to finish. So that will be my goal, to get a lot of these read in 2023. So we have the Agatha Christie Poirot series. I read a couple of Poirot mysteries, but I am not finished with her back catalogue, so I will be continuing on with those. We have the Cruel Prince series. I only read the first book. I really want to continue. We have Welcome to Night Vale, and they've released several other books in this series. I'm so excited to continue. The Shadow and Bone series. I only read the first book in the series, and I want to continue in the Grisha-verse. I'm still undecided whether or not I will finish out this particular starting series or just skip to the next one. I have the Stealing the Wind trilogy, where I reread the first one in order to read the others, but I have to read the others. I have Eragon, so I can't remember if I started Eragon this year or whether or not it was the previous year, but I definitely read Eldest, and I started Brissinger this past year, so I fully intended to finish out that 4-book series this year. I can't remember the series' complete title, but I read the first 2 books in the Will Darling series. The first book being Slippery Creatures. I loved that book. I read the first book in the Enchanter series, although I don't think any other books are out. Maybe I'm wrong. And then I also continued on in the Lords of the Underworld series, which I really enjoy and I'll get around to eventually. And then technically my biggest category, although I'll probably put the whole thing up on the screen, but I think this actually balances out in terms of comparing this to all the books that I did knock off my shelves. So we have all the series that I may have started this series, but not in 2022. And I have multiple books of a lot of these. These are all series that I didn't make a dent in 2022. So we have the Shadow of the Wind, we have Strange the Dreamer, Rosewater, although I only just bought that, so I do intend to finish that. We have the Bone Season, Darker Shade of Magic, The Savage Song, Call Down the Hawk. I have read the first book of, but I wanted to read the sequel in last year and I didn't. I have the Carry On series, Interview with the Vampire. Again, I read the first book in already, but I do have 2 of the sequels and I do intend to finish out that series. We have the Northern Lights trilogy, The Rook, Life and Never Letting Go. I have read the first book and I think I've read the second, but so long ago I can't remember. So I need to reread those 2 to finish out that trilogy. We have Gideon the Ninth, The Morning Emporium, Illuminae, 5th Season, The City We Became, Black Leopard, Red Wolf, The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. I have read 2 of the main novels and the novella, and I've just bought, or in the past couple of months, bought the final book in that series, so I need to finish that out. The Inkheart series, the Six of Crows duology. I put the Shannara, anyway, I put that book by Terry Brooks on there. I know that I have quite a number of their books on my shelves. They were given to me from a couple of different series, but I intend to read, or I intend to try out her work, so that's why I've just put down 1 book there, because I don't know whether or not I will want to continue. I then have 3 series or 3 trilogies by Trudy Caravan. I have the Greatest Things series, and finally I have the Circle. So these are all the series where I haven't started them yet, but I intend to read them. And this is a much smaller number than last year. I'm really, really happy with how I've managed this goal. So in terms of reading goals, that's what, 3 out of 4 that I accomplished. I am really, really happy with that. And my 4th goal was to keep this channel going, which I have done. So I had sort of subcategories, which was to 1, keep the channel going, which I have done. 2, to post 1 video per 2 weeks. So in terms of the number of videos that I produced, that works out. I have done that. However, it wasn't consistently. So that was something that I wanted to work on. Although with my mental health over the past year, it's not been something that's been that feasible. So I haven't been really hard on myself to keep that going. So I'm happy with that, and I will continue to keep this as a goal in 2023. That was a lot longer of a video than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be quick, rapid fire, but clearly I just had a lot to say. So thank you for watching this video. Please tell me about a reading goal that you've set for yourself this year. I would love to hear about it down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.